And thanks for joining us. I am Tamara Scott. You're listening to Truth for Our Time as we help you live God's Word in today's world. We help you when the headlines hit home, and here's why. Because if He expects you to live through it, He has directed you how to do it somewhere in your Word. So we thank you for tuning in and giving us your time as we work through the issues and coming back to God's way. It's always better than man's way. And as we're going to talk about today, when man tries to solve it, we get into a deeper mess and a deeper mess and a deeper mess. And we move away from the truth of the Word, then we have absolutely no plumb line of truth whatsoever. So before we get started today, I want to thank Franks for hopping in and helping me out and producing today. And for those of you who usually join us at Fridays at 10 a.m., we're usually here Fridays at 10 a.m. The next week we won't be here. I am out of town. I'm in D.C. with a conference and lobbying the people who like to spend your money and working to promote and protect those Christian foundations that started this nation. So I'll be doing that next Friday. So we'll be pre-taping. We won't be here that Friday at 10 a.m. But usually you can join us live Friday mornings, 10 a.m. in the studio at webcast1live.com, webcast1live.com. For those of you listening on air, 99.3, Sundays at noon, 99.3. You get to hear the truth on the airwaves there. And thank you. I get calls from you who are listening. I was never sure how that would work out when you were on your way home from church. Would you be ready to take some of this very serious information? Well, it just so happens today's show is kind of a continuation of a previous show. The Fairfield Community School District has implemented the mandate on bathrooms, which, it's a mandate, but it's just one man's words who has no power or authority to do such. Only Congress can control the purse, the funding. So no school is under any have to do this whatsoever policy. But Fairfield had implemented the bathroom policy where students can choose any bathroom, any stall they wish. And that show lit up so many of you, phone calls while you were listening Sunday, and the conversations even after the Friday taping. So thank you so much for your concern. This is your children. This is involving your children, and it's time that you as parents get involved. You can't just send them and expect everything to turn out okay. I years ago, and I think I've talked about this on air, wanted to do an ad before any of this ever came out. I wanted to do an ad where you saw those restrooms that are always behind the large, box discount stores. Pick the one of your choice. I'm not naming any particular one, but a discount type store. And you hear the rows of cash registers and the dings and the pings and those noises of the electronic cash registers. And then you see in my commercial this back wall of the bathrooms, how they are right there behind the cash registers usually. And I would, in this commercial, have a mother kind of wringing her hands as she kind of pats her young boy to go into the boys' room all by himself. He's too big to follow her into the women's room. So she's going to send him into the boys' room all by herself. And above it, in writing or words, I would have said, if you knew there was a predator waiting, would you simply pray and send him in anyway? And then I was going to flash to a classroom, the desks, and say, when you know the predator is waiting, why do so many of you simply pray and send them anyway? Because the public schools / government schools have not been teaching your values for quite some time. And now it's an all-out affront. That commercial would be so appropriate, but people would think I was doing it in response to the bathrooms. I've been wanting to do this for years. Even when I was back, I measure my time as radio stations, and that was clear back when I was at a different radio station. So it would have been before 2009. So this was long before the bathroom transgender issue that I just think it's time to either get your kids out. You wouldn't just pray and send them in anyway if you knew a predator was waiting. But for those of you who have kids in the school, and for those of you who don't, as Christians, we still want to be missionaries and do the right thing. And as citizens, we still want to uphold the foundational principles of this country. And we've so totally fallen away from those. So we're going to continue that show today. And joining me is a new friend that I met just this week in the travels that I do and the job that I get to have, traveling the state of Iowa and hearing the concerns that are on the hearts of Iowans, hearing the issues that are in the communities. And I was very blessed this week to get to travel to Fairfield and meet with several. And I was so moved by this group. I just have to tell you, it was a group of pastors who are concerned, parents who are concerned, and just want to do the right thing, even more in the right heart. with a loving attitude, not a judgmental, not condemnation, just a loving attitude. And I was very moved. In this group, there wasn't anyone trying to vie for a leadership position to get their name out in the news or to do a press conference like so many of the big groups tend to do when these issues come along, and then they use it for a fundraiser and a newsletter. This is just a group of parents organically coming together to do what's best and what's right by the children God gave them. So joining me today is Pastor John. John, thank you for coming on air with me.
Thank you.
Now you tell me, do we want to give the church that you're from, or just want to go by Pastor John?
Let's just go by Pastor John.
Okay. And you've heard me talk about that group. I was very moved by just the hearts that I saw, just people who care about people in that group. So a couple weeks ago on this show, the superintendent from the school district was kind enough to come on the show. I give her courage for that. She didn't know what she was walking into. Obviously, I don't agree. I don't think she would have had to put this policy in place for any reason, but she chose to. Intimidation or fear or whatever, she chose to. Since that time, what's taking place in your school district? Can you tell? Can you share?
Yes, as a youth pastor, many of the youth were very upset. Youth in the community, not just the youth from my church, and it basically what broke out was sort of a civil war at the high school. This was implemented so quickly and completely with really no discussion, dialogue whatsoever, no notification of parents. It just was enacted immediately. And I had some girls in my group who were in their girls' locker room and changing, and boys would walk into the locker room, and these girls, of course, were very uncomfortable and frightened, and left the locker room. Many have had that experience in bathrooms where they're not changing, but just using the restrooms, and the opposite biological gender will walk in, and it makes them very uncomfortable and nervous. And
when your superintendent was on the show, I asked about that. If what about students who were now afraid to go into some of these bathrooms because other students of the opposite sex may come in? She admitted it, and she said, that students, will, because I asked her about students just daring each other to do it, and she admitted that would be an issue.
Yes.
But they continue on with this policy.
Right.
And so...
And it has been an issue. There have been boys that are just, daring each other go into the girls' locker room. And, of course, with the way this mandate is worded, with no parental notification, any student can simply say, I identify as a transgender and want to go into such and such locker room. Now, they don't have to say, I want to go into any locker room. They just have to say, I identify as transgender, and then they can go into whatever locker room they choose.
Does the student have to actually sign in with the office as a transgender student?
Do they have to what?
Does the student have to identify themselves in any way formally with the office as a transgender student?
It does not appear that they have to formally. The wording is a little vague on that. There does not have to be any 24-hour notification or anything, and no parental notification. It does make it specific that there does not have to be any, there should be no litmus test as far as has this child been living as the opposite of their biological gender or anything like that. So a student could come into the office in the morning and say, I identify, let's say it's a biological male, and they could come in and say, I identify as a female today. And then it's done. Then they can go and shower with the girls. They could try out for the girls' basketball team or volleyball team, softball team. They could travel on overnight trips with choirs and bands and teams, and stay in hotel rooms with the opposite biological gender.
Now, people are going to say that that's an exaggeration and that will not happen.
Well, it's already happening. We have already had an instance where a biological girl did share in a hotel room with two boys. At her request, she was put in a hotel room with two boys, and for a band and choir trip to St. Louis. That happened about the day after, 1 or 2 days after the mandate came through. No parents of the other students were notified, and it just was done, even though each parent, including myself as a parent, were given a list of rules and regulations for the trip that specifically stated that boys will not be in girls' rooms, girls will not be in boys' rooms. So it sent a very confusing message.
So you were given that list of guidelines that opposite sexes would not be allowed in the other's rooms, but yet...
Yes, every student that went on the trip signed that, as well as a parent of that student, parent or guardian, was to sign that as well before their children were allowed on the trip.
And to be clear for our listeners, this young lady identified herself as a male, so she stayed in the room with two boys, and their parents were not notified before this trip?
I don't know for sure if their parents knew about it or not. I know the rest of the parents on the trip did not know about it. I was actually a chaperone on the trip, and I did not know about it. I was responsible for 8 other students that were not in that situation in the hotel rooms. So, but I did not know about it. It would have, had I been in charge of that, it would have been very awkward for me as a chaperone, because one thing you are supposed to do as a chaperone is go into the room and make visual contact with each student to make sure they're all there and present, and getting to bed on time and that type of thing. And it would have felt very awkward for me to walk in when this biological girl is possibly in some state of undress or something.
Yeah, we never talk about that liability. As a male chaperone, knocking, going into the room, you wouldn't suspect yourself of falling into a situation where you'd have a young female student. And so then, here's the thing. This is what the issue is. It's so indefensible for employers, for others, because now businesses can't even protect or take action. They can't ask someone to leave a restroom who shouldn't be in a restroom because of this policy. So their clients, their customers, their employees are now at risk, and they're now liable, and there's not a thing they can do about it.
Yes, that's part of the ramifications that are concerning. We don't have any dislike or disrespect for any of the students, whether they be transgender or not, but we are concerned for safety. We are concerned for the safety of the transgender student as well. In these situations, it could turn into something dangerous for them, as well as a liable situation for those who are not transgender and are just trying to do the right thing. So it opens up a can of worms, and it addresses this issue in a way that seems to cause many more potential problems than solutions. Up until this point,
I'm going to ask you to hold right there, because we have to go to break. So hold your thoughts, and we'll finish that complete sentence when we come from break. But folks, listen to this. All this turmoil, and there's so much more, and I've put a lot of these on the Truth for Our Time Facebook page, and I'll try and get some of them on the website, Tamara Scott, later if I can. But stay tuned, 99.3 FM, Truth for Our Time. Right back.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah!
If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Hey everybody, I brought Northern Lights Pizza! And it's got Graziano sausage!
Rock and Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens, rock on! This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Yes, I am Tamara Scott. You're listening to Tamara Scott with Truth for Our Time. My guest today is Pastor John from the Fairfield, Iowa area, where they have already implemented the transgender bathroom policy, so students can select which bathroom they choose to go into, which locker room they choose to walk into. And yes, it's already happening. I had asked the superintendent if she thought students would just dare each other to go in, and she said yes, probably some of them will. And I'm telling you, it's a matter of time before they put a camera in there, because they have to prove to somebody that they took the dare. And your student could be the victim. Absolute victim. Think that through. How unfair is it that we're asking our kids to deal with this, that we're putting our kids in harm's way to deal with this? I think we'll pay for one day if we're not doing everything we can to stop it as parents. And it shouldn't surprise us, by the way. I don't want to get off track here, but remember Fox News in July of 2015 reported that Oregon State was now allowing transgender sex changes, surgeries, without parental notification to students through Medicaid. So think that through. I have a link on the Truth for Our Time Facebook page that K through 12. This is now in the Washington State, will be this fall in the Washington, or maybe the fall of 2017, in their core idea, Common Core, remember all of that? They're going to be teaching transgenderism to kindergartners. And when asked about it, what if someone has differing beliefs? What would that do if they didn't agree with the curriculum? The response was, we don't know if they might fail the whole class. So this freedom for some students in the bathroom relates to oppression for more students, million more students in the classroom. And so what we're trying to say for freedom for sexual identity is oppression for conviction. For their comfort, they get freedom. But for your sacred conviction, you get oppression and punishment. So you have to understand what's taking place here. This is a movement to come and take your children at their very core of who they are, their identity. Pastor John is with me today. He's in the community. Pastor John, you're about to make a statement, and I ask you to hold it for the break. I don't know if you can remember what that was or not, but please continue.
Sure. Yeah, I don't remember exactly where I was, but it did create somewhat of a civil war in the school. Of course, there were some kids who were against the policy, who were handling it incorrectly and with verbal threats and negative graffiti and things of that sort.
Which is what anyone does, adult or not, when we don't trust the Holy Spirit or we don't feel like we have control. But that's a common reaction we talk about the caged animal, we talk about fight or flight, but that's what happens when someone feels attacked or violated.
Yes, but the vast majority of students, especially the ones that I'm working with in my youth group, have nothing but love and care for those in the LGBTQ community, and we're our friends with them, are in choirs and band and different things with them, and have nothing against them personally, but are just uncomfortable with this mandate being enacted. And the Civil War that became not so civil at all was in full force a couple weeks ago when this was first implemented, and armbands were being given out to people to say they supported this mandate. And if you weren't wearing the armband, you were oftentimes shunned or labeled as a bigot or a hater. And then colors, different T-shirt colors. You know, if you're wearing blue, you're for it. If you're wearing white, you're against it. And again, even kids that didn't know about that show up with a certain colored shirt, and they would be labeled as bigots, haters, and would be ostracized by those who were just days before their good friends.
They're being bullied by those who are claiming to be victims.
Yes, and even by those who are sympathetic to those claiming to be victims. So those who were not in full agreement were being victimized and bullied. Their feelings, their concerns were not being taken seriously, and they experienced a lot of hate. There were kids having panic attacks. There were kids leaving the school early, being sick to their stomach with all the turmoil going on, and it's just a horrible scene just a couple weeks before school is out.
And I hear that students are going to businesses right after the school day lets out. They're rushing to businesses to use the restrooms there because they're afraid to use the restrooms at school.
Yes, the local grocery store is seeing an influx of students, sometimes at lunch and then always immediately after school come in and immediately go to the restroom.
All their rights, in fact, I think that the Supreme Court has said you have a right to expect safety when you walk into a bathroom and privacy, but all their rights are being trampled upon for a minuscule number. Henry Burke, who is a civil engineer who we've worked with on the Common Core, says he has it figured out to about 7 out of 100,000. About 7 out of 100,000 people may consider themselves transgender. In a stadium of 87,000 people, that would be 3. And we've turned everything upside down for this. The beauty of America is that majority, we're not a democracy and the majority rules. The minority has a voice, but the minority is not supposed to rule either. It's supposed to be justice for everyone in the best interest of the largest community.
Well, and part of my concern is that this mandate is based upon feelings of comfortability for those who are considering themselves to be transgender. And again, we have nothing but love for the LGBTQ community, and we've demonstrated that many times over in our church and in our society. However, their feelings of comfortability are overruling the 600 or 700 other students' feelings of uncomfortability with having someone of the opposite genitals changing next to them or showering next to them, or even sharing a double bed in a hotel room with them on an overnight stay in a trip.
The liability there is just immense. Can you imagine being a young woman trying to sleep in a bed with someone next to you who claims to identify, but it doesn't matter if They still have full capability to do something else. You are just violated. Just by them being in the room, you're violated. And I want to come back to...
And those feelings are not being even considered, which the solution has been for those students who are uncomfortable. Well, they can use the gender-neutral private bathrooms, which in a school of 600 or 700, there's 2 of those. So it's an unworkable solution.
Well, and we were told they didn't want to use those bathrooms because that was segregation, and these students deserve to be in with everybody else. So this isn't about safety. This is about infiltration.
No, I'm saying that's the school's solution to the cisgender, the non-transgender.
To the kids who are concerned about their safety, they can be the ones to go find those restrooms?
Yes, and of course it used to be the opposite, that those restrooms would be and could be and were being used by the transgender students. But now those restrooms are for the other 600 or so students who are not comfortable changing clothes next to somebody who's biologically the opposite gender.
And according to the principal, she didn't want the considered themselves transgender students to feel left out or to feel awkward and to use those restrooms, but it's okay if all those other students feel awkward.
Right, and the mandate, the wording of the mandate does say that the private bathrooms cannot be offered as the solution for the transgender student because that is segregating them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It is being offered for the non-transgender students to segregate them if they feel uncomfortable with this mandate.
And just to clarify for anybody who hasn't heard, it's really not a mandate. It's a guideline from Obama himself, from his administration. He has no authority. He doesn't make law, and he doesn't control the funding. So when he threatens that Title IX funding, which Jane Robbins from the American Principal Project is going to join us towards the end of the hour and discuss this, he has no weight to do such. But this isn't even a mandate. It's a guideline from this LGBTQ progressive agenda of the administration. And if we had a congressional arm that was worth its weight and really represented the people, they could vote 2/3 over a veto proof and settle the whole matter, and we wouldn't have to deal with this. John, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, as Christians, as parents, as grandparents, people are hurting. I have not seen hate from people. I'm sure it's probably there. But from the majority of folks that I talk to, they want to help folks. They have compassion. But as Christians, we can't condone what God has condemned. So what is the action, the words, what does a Christian do?
Well, the actions that many are taking are, of course, speaking out, talking to the school administration. We have many planning on going to the next school board meeting and presenting their concerns there. Some concerned parents have begun a petition that was very carefully and lovingly worded to make it clear that our battle is not with the LGBTQ community. There's nothing but love for those that are in that community, but to have the rights of the others trampled upon is unacceptable. Many parents are already planning on withdrawing their students next year. Many are banding together in homeschool associations. Others are looking at private schools, Christian schools in a nearby town. Others are looking at other public schools in nearby towns that have chosen not to enact this policy. So I'm afraid this move is going to very negatively impact our school and leave it poorly funded for every student. My understanding is every student lost costs the school between $4,000 and $6,000 a year. And so now if you're talking, 10 students, that's a lot of money. If you're talking 50 students, that's a tremendous amount of money that is going to be taken out of the school district, which means teachers' jobs, which means the quality of education and facility and provision that is there to all the students, transgender or not. The quality and resources could go down dramatically based on this.
Well, we know that money doesn't have any equation really as to the academics, the test scores, and the quality of the classroom. So maybe this is a great opportunity for some of you to come together and pool your resources and start another school outside of the public or government schools. I don't know if we wouldn't do it over this. I don't know what would cause us to do it if we won't save our children on this note. We've got to go to another break. John, when we come back, would you give us some scripture, some spiritual guidelines for folks whose children, grandchildren may be dealing with this issue?
Sure.
We'll be right back after these messages. 99.3 FM, Truth for Our Time.
Northern Lights Pizza's amazing garlic butter makes amazing breadsticks. Now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
And you're listening to Truth for Our Time. I am Tamara Scott. Thank you for taking time out with us. When we gave this show, the first show on the Fairfield situation, one of you called, and it was such a sweet voicemail that I got, that you are so frustrated with things at your own church and the lack of understanding and how they were handling this issue. And then to hear our show gave you encouragement on how to deal with things and how to handle and discuss. And so I appreciate that encouragement so much. I'm glad that we could help you. I'm reading right now from Galatians 5:13. You, my brothers, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge in the sinful got to change my little tab here, in the sinful nature, rather serve one another in love. John, we're talking about this issue with people we know, we love. I don't know of a family that's not touched in some way by this, a coworker, a friend, a relative, extended family. For those of us who do want to carry out the cause of Christ, we're not interested in alienating or hurting feelings, but we want all to know the truth in Jesus Christ so that they can truly be free, which, by the way, is on the back of your card. John 8:36, the Son sets you free, and you are truly free. What do we tell parents? What's your guidance for them?
Well, my guidance has been, with my youth that I work with and parents, is we need to love and respect all people, regardless of their lifestyle choices, regardless of their, identity. We need to show love and respect to all people. And we have had many in the LGBTQ community who have been in our church, in our youth group. They are in bands and choirs and different teams, drama teams, speech teams, with our children. And we need to be teaching our children to love them, encourage them, be a light in their life, but at the same time, speak truth, always in love. As 1 Corinthians 13 tells us that if we have all the gifts of the Holy Spirit but don't practice them in love, we're like a clanging gong, or a clanging cymbal, or a noisy gong. Yelling, screaming, getting red-faced is that clanging cymbal, that noisy gong that is actually counterproductive to the cause of Christ. So love must be shown, but it is also appropriate, and there's biblical precedent for taking a stand when our rights are being trampled on as believers, as just human beings. So that must be taken into consideration as well.
Well, and beyond
and
that,
when we were trying to protect our children, and even those children who do identify as transgender, when we're concerned for protecting them as well.
right, physically, health-wise, but spiritually.
Yes.
If we're supposed to refrain from sin, it doesn't matter whether it's indulgence in drunkenness, overeating and gluttony, lying, cheating, stealing, adultery, pornography. We would try and stop any youth from a behavior that was going to lead them down a path of sin that would be detrimental for eternal freedom.
Yes.
And so under that, we have an obligation as Christians to share the truth. The unfortunate thing is, through these very oppressive laws and rules and handing these climate that is being set in the schools, kids are not allowed to share the truth. This isn't about free will, which we used to hear about. This is about forcing things upon students and families that wouldn't otherwise be allowed in a society, not through law. We see it coming through the courts. And you can't even speak out because of the punishment you may face at work if you're an employee, or at school now through the curriculum I just talked about from Washington, where a student may be failed if they stand up for their convictions. So
right.
we see it in truth when Target is being boycotted. You can't force people where to shop, so they're actually telling you how they feel. A vast number, a majority, large numbers are speaking out on that. But the concern is we can't even speak the truth anymore, and we must, as Christians, for the safety and well-being of our children, not just physically but spiritually.
Yes, I agree. And we have been praying for those in the LGBTQ community who have not yet been introduced to Christ to find Christ and find their identity in Him and the freedom, true freedom, that comes in Him, not in some sexual identity or sexual practices. And this is part of my personal concern, is that oftentimes those within that community that becomes their entire identity. And I have to think, and knowing some of these youth who are in that community, I know that they are so much more than that.
Right.
There is so much more to them than that. Yet it seems that that becomes their entire identity. Me being a heterosexual male is a very small part of who I am.
You don't feel the need to stand up and announce it at a meeting?
No.
And yet I was at a meeting this week with Senator Grassley, and in a completely unsolicited, out of order comment comes this, "I'm gay," from someone.
Right. And I just don't understand the need for that. Is that all we are? Or is there much more to us? And I believe, as people who are knit together in their mother's womb by their Creator God, that we are designed for so much more than just sexual pleasure, which much of this revolves around, and sexual choices and behaviors. And I believe our sexuality is a part of what is created in us, but when it is made the major thing in our lives and it becomes all we talk about, all we focus upon, I believe we are so out of balance that we do harm to ourselves mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And this is part of my concern for my friends who are LGBTQ, and I have expressed this to some of them as well, that what else are you? And I think we need to pause and think about that. And if somebody only identifies as this, then what are they missing out of life? What are they missing out of their potential relationship with their Creator through His Son, Jesus Christ? There's so much more to life, and it seems like rather than broadening perspectives, this whole issue has narrowed perspectives, where now, let's say you have a young man who maybe isn't particularly aggressive, maybe he likes arts and crafts, likes to sing, doesn't really care that much about sports. Well, now people are labeling that young man as, well, he must be really a girl inside. So to be a man, do you have to be a lumberjack? What about a girl who's somewhat of a tomboy, doesn't care about, dressing up as a princess and putting on a bunch of makeup and likes to be more rough and tumble, wrestle around, play football, those type of things? Well, now people are saying, well, she must really be a boy on the inside, even though she's biologically a girl.
Well, and what you're heading to...
How narrow-minded.
Right.
Can't she be a tomboy and still be a girl as God has made her to be?
Absolutely. And what you're heading into is, we've heard this discussed on the folks who were with Johns Hopkins University, who used to do the sex changes, and they're now saying it's considered child abuse. Because, exactly what you're saying, these kids will often, one, outgrow it, but two, it could just be one of the many facets of their multifaceted personality, likes, and interests. So you're absolutely right. And I don't mean to be cutting you off, but you can probably tell we're coming up on a break. So for our listeners, stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Truth for Our Time as we help you and we help research when the headlines hit home. Hey, Jane.
Sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens, rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rockton Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
Northern Lights Pizza, your home of the tasty crust. Our garlic butter sauce now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live. From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Scott, we're with Truth for Our Time. Thank you for joining us. Pastor John is on the phone from Fairfield, Iowa, where they have implemented, though they really wouldn't have had to, Congress is the one who controls the budget, who writes the laws. The guidelines that Obama wants to set forward are guidelines and nothing more. But Fairfield implemented this, and as Pastor John was sharing, students are leaving with stomach aches. They're nervous. They're having panic attacks. They're rushing into businesses after school and over the lunch hour to use the bathrooms there because they no longer feel safe in their school. And they are now putting 600 and some students at odds, and for the sake of what the the superintendent told me was less than a handful, less than 10, maybe 5. So now 600 students have been put on warning, and as the pastor was sharing in a recent field trip, a biological girl shared a hotel room with 2 boys because she now considers herself to be a transgendered male, and no one knows yet if the parents were warned ahead of time or not. Think of all the things that are just going on with this. Girls coming in to change for their locker rooms for sports, and boys popping in just because they can, whether they're really transgender or not. A dare from a friend because they can. Because there's no one there now to say, you can't go in there. And the liability is that the school can't really stop it if this is implemented, or nor can a business person, which, by the way, in 2006, I was at the State House lobbying against the change in the Civil Rights Code to protection for sexual identity because of this, and I warned the Business Administration, ABI, that this would impact their businesses, and I'm curious, I should go back and find that director and see if he remembers that, because when people tell me that's a red herring, it won't happen, I had to write the book, When Red Herrings Really Happen, because here we are, we find ourselves. So John's still on the line. I thank you for staying with us, John. I thank you for sharing these stories. Jane Robbins is joining us. She is an attorney with American Principles Project. She is no stranger to our audience. She has dealt with us on the Common Core issue a great deal. And in fact, Jane, I put on an article of the Facebook page that in Washington, K through 12 kindergartners are now going to be taught transgenderism, and out of the core ideas coming out of their Common Core, the core ideas curriculum, and if they disagree, they could be failed. They could fail the class.
Well, what we're seeing here is the sort of pell-mell rush for the administration to get as radical policies in as they can in the time they have remaining. They put this off until the last, 8 months of the administration. But this is where they're going, and this is a legacy they intend to leave, and it is much, much broader than just having girls in boys' bathrooms or boys in girls' bathrooms. As bad as that is, it's really an assault on so much more. It's an assault on not only local control of education, obviously, but on parental authority. If parents don't want their children exposed to this, they don't have any right to say no under this decree. And even if they had a right to say no, the decree, or at least the documents connected to the decree, make it clear that the parents shouldn't even be told. Parents of supposedly transgender students, if something's going on with their child, the school can work with the child without informing the parents about what's happening. So it's really just a breathtaking usurpation of parental authority.
And he's doing it under the supposed Title IX. You are an attorney. There's no authority for him to be doing this under Title IX.
No. In fact, Title IX allows, the regulations under Title IX specifically allow separate restrooms, separate changing facilities, separate private accommodations. And obviously everybody thought that would be the case forever because anything else would be ridiculous, right? But no, we're no longer in the area where people are operating according to sanity. But what the Obama administration is saying is that, yes, you can have separate restrooms and separate locker rooms, but if someone thinks that he's a girl or claims to think that he's a girl, then he should be allowed to go into the girls' restroom, even though that is separate from the boys generally. So for all practical purposes, you just open up everything because the decree also says that a school may not require any medical documentation for the so-called transgenderism. And as long as a kid says he's a girl when he's not, you have to treat him as though he is.
And so what's the liability then? Because say this were a business, you can no longer tell someone to leave. You don't have that right. You'd be liable there. But if someone gets harmed now because you can't stop someone who may not be transgender, who's a pervert, who is someone waiting for an assault, who is whatever, but now falls under the protection of this transgender policy, you're still liable as an employee, and now someone's at risk.
Well, it is an interesting question. We'll see how all this shakes out because this is brand new territory. There is a lawsuit in Illinois because the administration had reached a settlement with a school in Illinois to allow I believe in that case it was a boy claiming to be a girl, to allow him into the girls' facilities. And the parents have sued. The 51 parents have sued the school over that, and that case is still in the court. So we don't know what's going to happen. Presumably the school would say, well, we have no choice. We have to do this. But it is going to be a legal mess because bad things are going to happen. Right now, we have the universal rule that if I go into a ladies' room somewhere and there's a man standing there, I know there's something wrong, and I get out and I call security. But now, if you see a man in there, you can't call, well, you can call security if you want to, but they're going to say, well, what do you want me to do about it?
Right.
I can't make him leave. So when you cross that boundary, you're opening things up to just horrible, horrible things happening. And the idea that these things won't happen is just delusional.
I have posted Jane's article on the Truth for Our Time Facebook page. She recently wrote the article on this, and I just put it on the Facebook page for Truth for Our Time. Jane, if people want to learn more about you, where do they go?
They can go to AmericanPrinciplesProject.org. We've also written a good bit about this, and some of the articles are up at the Pulse, PULSE 2016.com.
thepulse2016.com. Jane, this group in Fairfield is a great group of parents wanting to do what they can. They've got a petition that people can sign, and if you want to go to one of the churches there in Fairfield, many of them are participating, and you can sign the petition. If this group has questions, would you talk to them and guide them through?
Oh, certainly. I would be happy to talk to anybody this is where we have to plant the flag. This far and no farther.
Right, we absolutely, and this is where we have to plant a flag as far as out of time as well. We're done for today, but Jane is absolutely right. If you won't protect your kids on this point, what would you? If a military army came in to castrate our men, we would have a hissy fit. This was Old Testament, right? And yet now we're allowing this to happen even without parental notification and on the taxpayers' backs. It's got to stop. These are your children. Take them back. Parental control, parental rights, godly authority. We're out of time. You've been encouraged. Never be complacent.